A man can be provided with what is needed, but it depends on what is needed and who it is needed for. What You Need by Henry Kuttner. Read by Karl. We have what you need. That's what the sign said. Tim Carmichael, who worked for a trade paper that specialized in economics and eked out a meager salary by selling sensational and untrue articles to the tabloids, failed to sense a story in the reverse sign. Thought it was a cheap but publicity gag, something one seldom encounters on Park Avenue, where the sharp fronts are noted for their classic dignity. And he was irritated. He growled silently, walked on, and suddenly turned and came back. He wasn't quite strong enough to resist the temptation to unscramble the sentence, though his annoyance grew. He stood before the window, staring up and said to himself, "We have what you need." Yeah? The sign was in prim, small letters on a black painted ribbon that stretched across a narrow glass pane. Below it was one of those curved, invisible glass windows. Through the window, Carmichael could see an expanse of white velvet with a few objects carefully arranged there. A rusty nail, a horseshoe, and a diamond tiara. It looked like a dowry decor for Cartier or Tiffany's. Jewelers? Carmichael asked silently. But why what you need? He pictured millionaires, miserably despondent for lack of a matched pearl necklace. Heiresses weeping insolubly because they needed a few sapphires. The principle of luxury merchandising was to deal with the whipped cream of supply and demand. Few people needed diamonds. They really wanted them and could afford them. Or the place might sell genie flasks, Carmichael decided, or magic wands. Same principle as a coney carney, though. A sucker trap. Build a watch set outside and people will pay their dimes to flock in. For 2 cents. He was dyspeptic this morning and generally disliked the world. Prospect of a scapegoat was attractive, and his press card gave him a certain advantage. He opened the door and walked into the shop. It was Park Avenue, all right. There were no showcases or counters. It might be an art gallery, for a few good oils were displayed on the walls. An air of overpowering luxury with the bleakness of an unlived-in place struck Carmichael. Through a curtain at the back came a very tall man with carefully combed white hair, a ruddy, healthy face, and sharp blue eyes. He might have been 60. He wore expensive but careless tweeds, which somehow jarred with the decor. "Good morning," the man said, with a quick glance at Carmichael's clothes. He seemed slightly surprised. "May I help you?" "Maybe." Carmichael introduced himself and showed his press card. "Oh, my name is Talley. Peter Talley. I saw your sign." "Oh?" A paper is always on the lookout for possible write-ups. Never noticed your sharp before." "I've been here for years," Talley said. "This an art gallery?" "Well, no." The door opened. A florid man came in and greeted Talley cordially. Carmichael, recognizing the client, felt his painting of the shop swing rapidly upward. The florid man was a name. A big one. "It's a bit early, Mr. Talley," he said, "but I didn't want to delay. Have you had time to get what I needed?" "Oh, yes, I have it. One moment." Talley hurried to the draperies and returned with a small, neatly wrapped parcel, which he gave to the florid man. The latter forked over a check. Carmichael caught a glimpse of the amount and gulped, and departed. His town car was at the curb outside. Carmichael moved towards the door where he could watch. The florid man seemed anxious. His chauffeur waited stolidly as the parcel was unwrapped with hurried fingers. "I'm not sure I want publicity, Mr. Carmichael," Talley said. "I've a select clientele, carefully chosen. Perhaps our weekly economic bulletins might interest you?" Talley tried not to laugh. "Oh, I don't think so. It really isn't in my line." The florid man had finally unwrapped the parcel and taken out an egg. As far as Carmichael could see from a post near the door, it was merely an ordinary egg. But its possessor regarded it with almost awe. Had the Earth's last hen died 10 years before, the man could not have been more pleased. Something like deep relief showed on the florid tanned face. He said something to the chauffeur, and the car rolled smoothly forward and was gone. "Are you in the dairy business?" Carmichael asked abruptly. No. Do you mind telling me what your business is? I'm afraid I do, rather, Tally said. Carmichael was beginning to sense a story. Of course, I could find out through the Better Business Bureau. You couldn't. No? You might just in knowing why an egg is worth $5,000 to one of your customers. Tally said, my clientele is so small I must charge high fees. You know that the Chinese mandarin has been known to pay thousands of taels for eggs of proved antiquity? That guy wasn't a Chinese mandarin, Carmichael said. Oh, well, as I said, I don't welcome publicity. I think you do. I was in the advertising game for a while. Spelling your sign backwards is an obvious baited hook. Then you're no psychologist, Tally said. It's just that I can afford to indulge my whims. For 5 years I looked at the window every day and read the sign backwards, from inside my shop. It annoyed me. You know how a word will begin to look funny if you keep staring at it? Any word. Turns into something in no human tongue. Well, I discovered I was getting neurosis about that sign. It made no sense backwards, but I kept finding myself trying to read a sense into it. When I started to say it to myself and looking for philological derivations, I called it a sign paper. People interested enough still drop in. Not many, Carmichael said shrewdly. This is Park Avenue, and you got the place fixed up too expensively. Nobody in the low income brackets, or the middle brackets, would come in here. So you run an upper class business. Well, said Tally. Yes, I do. And you won't tell me what it is? I'd rather not. I can find out, you know. It might be dope, pornography, high class fencing. Very likely, Mr. Tally said smoothly. I buy stolen jewels, conceal them in eggs, and sell them to my customers. Or perhaps that egg was loaded with microscopic French postcards. Good morning, Mr. Carmichael. Good morning, Carmichael said and went out. It was overdue at the office, but annoyance was the stronger motivation. He played sleuth for a while, keeping an eye on Tally's shop, and the results were thoroughly satisfying, to a certain extent. He learned everything but why. Later in the afternoon, he sought out Mr. Tally again. Wait a minute, he said, at sight of the proprietor's discouraging face. For all you know, I may be a customer. Tally laughed. Well, why not? Carmichael pressed his lips. How do you know the size of my bank account? Or maybe you've got a restricted clientele? No, but... Carmichael said quite quickly, I've been doing some investigating. I've been noticing your customers. In fact, following them. Finding out what they buy from you. Tally's face changed. Indeed? Indeed. They're all in a hurry to unwrap their little bundles. So they gave me my chance to find out. I missed a few, but I saw enough to apply a couple of rules of logic, Mr. Tally. Item. Your customers don't know what they're buying from you. It's sort of a grab bag. A couple of times they were plenty surprised. The man opened his parcel and found an old newspaper clipping. What about the sunglasses? And the revolver. Probably illegal, by the way, no license. And the diamond. It must have been paste, it was so big. Mr. Tally said. I know Smart Apple, but I can smell a screwy setup. Most of your clients are big shots, one way or another. Why didn't any of them pay you like the first man, the guy who came in when I was here this morning? It's chiefly a credit business, Tally said. It's my ethics. I have to, for my own conscience. It's a responsibility. You see, I sell my goods with a guarantee. Payment is made only if the project proves satisfactory. So, an egg, sunglasses, a pair of asbestos gloves, I think they were, a newspaper clipping, a gun, and a diamond. How do you take inventory? Tally said nothing. Carmichael grinned. You've an errand boy. You send him out when he comes back with bundles. Maybe he goes for a grocery in Madison to buy an egg. Or a pawn shop on 6th for a revolver. Or, well, anyhow, I told you I'd find out what your business is. And have you? Tally asked. We have what you need, Carmichael said. But how do you know? You're jumping to Conclusions? I've got a headache. I didn't have sunglasses, and I don't believe in magic. Look, Mr. Tally, I've put up to the eyebrows and beyond in queer little shops that sell peculiar things. I know too much about them. I've written about them. Guy walks along the street and sees a funny sort of store, and the proprietor won't serve him. He sells only the pixies. Or as he does sell them a magic charm with a double edge. Well, phooey. Tally said. As much as you like. But you can't get away from logic. Either you've got a sound, sensible racket here, or else it's one of those funny magic shop setups, and I don't believe that. For it isn't logical. Why not? Because of economics, Carmichael said flatly. Grant the idea that you've got certain mysterious powers. Let's say you can make telepathic gadgets. All right. Why the devil would you start a business so you could sell the gadgets, you could make money so you could live? You simply put on one of your gadgets, read the stockbroker's mind, and buy the right stocks. That's the intrinsic fallacy in this crazy shop thing. If you got enough stuff on the ball to be able to stock and run such a shop, you wouldn't need a business in the first place. Why go round Robin Hood's barn? Tally said nothing. Carmichael smiled crookedly. I often wondered what the vintners buy one half so precious as the stuff they sell, he quoted. Well, what do you buy? I know what you sell. Eggs and sunglasses. You're an inquisitive man, Mr. Carmichael, Tally murmured. Has it ever occurred to you that this is none of your business? I may be a customer, Carmichael repeated. How about that? Tally's blue eyes were intent. A new light dawned on them. Tally pursed his lips and scowled. I hadn't thought of that, he admitted. You might be, under the circumstances. Would you excuse me for a moment? Sure, Carmichael said. Tally went through the curtains. Outside, traffic drifted idly along Park Avenue. As the sun slid down beyond the Hudson, the street lay in a blue shadow that crept imperceptibly up the barricades of the buildings. Carmichael stared at the sign, We have what you need, and smiled. In the back room, Tally put his eye to a binocular plate and moved the calibrated dial. He did this several times. Then, biting his lip, for he was a gentleman, he called his errand boy and gave him directions. After that, he returned to Carmichael. You're a customer, he said, under certain conditions. The condition of my bank account, you mean? No, said Tally. I'll give you reduced rates. Understand one thing. I really don't have what you need. You don't know what you need, but I know. As it happens, well, I'll tell you what you need for, let's say, $5. Carmichael reached for his wallet. Tally held up a hand. Pay me after you're satisfied, and the money is the nominal part of the fee. There's another part. If you're satisfied, I want you to promise you'll never come into the shop again and never mention it to anyone. I see, Carmichael said slowly. His theories had changed slightly. It won't be long before... Ah, here he is now. A buzzing from the back indicated the return of the errand boy. Tally said, Excuse me, and vanished. Soon he returned with a neat red parcel, which he thrust into Carmichael's hands. Keep this on your person, Tally said. Good afternoon. Carmichael nodded, pocketed the parcel, and went out. Feeling affluent, he hailed a taxi and went to a cocktail bar he knew. There, in the dim light of a booth, he unwrapped the bundle. Protection money, he decided. Tally was paying off to keep his mouth shut about the racket, whatever it was. Okay, live and let live. How long would he... 10,000? 50,000? How big was what was the racket? He opened an oblong cardboard box. Within, nestling upon tissue paper, was a pair of shears, the blades protected by a sheaf of folded, glued cardboard. Carmichael said something softly. He drank his highball and ordered another, but left it untasted. Glancing at his wristwatch, he decided that the Park Avenue shop would be closed by now, and Mr. Peter Tally gone. One half so precious as the stuff they sell, Carmichael mused. Maybe it's the scissors of Atropos. Bah. He unsheathed the blades and snipped uncertainly at the air. Nothing happened. Slightly crimson around the cheekbones, Carmichael reholstered the shears and dropped it in the side pocket of his topcoat. What a gag. He decided to call in Peter Tally tomorrow. Meanwhile, what? He remembered he had a dinner date with one of the girls of the office and hastily paid his bill and left. The streets were darkened, and cold wind blew southward from the park. Carmichael wound his scarf tightly around his throat and made gestures towards passing taxis. He was considerably annoyed. Half an hour later, a thin man with sad eyes, Jerry Worth, one of the copywriters from his office, greeted him at the bar where Carmichael was killing time. "Waiting for Betsy?" Worth said, nodding towards the restaurant annex. "She sent me to tell you couldn't make it. A rush deadline, apologies and stuff. Where were you today? Things got gummed up a bit. Have a drink with me." They worked on a rye. Carmichael was already slightly stiff. The dull crimson around his cheekbones had deepened and his frown had become set. "What you need," he remarked, double-crossing little. "Huh?" Worth said. "Nothing. Drink up. I've just decided to get a guy in trouble if I can." "You almost got in trouble yourself today. That the trend analysis of ores. Eggs, sunglasses. I got you out of a jam." "Shut up," Carmichael said, nodding on around. Every time he felt the weight of the shears in his pocket, he found his lips moving. 5 shots later, Worth said plaintively, "I don't mind going into deeds, but I do like to mention them, and he won't let me. All I want is a little gratitude." "All right, mention them," Carmichael said. "Brag your head off. Who cares?" Worth showed satisfaction. "That ore analysis. It was that. You weren't at the office today, but I caught it. I checked with our records and you had trans steel all wrong. If I hadn't altered the figures, it would have gone straight down to the printer." "What?" "The trans steel, they..." "Oh, you fool," Carmichael groaned. "I know it didn't check with office figures. I had to put in a notice to have them changed. I got my dope from the source. Why don't you mind your own business?" Worth blinked. "I was trying to help." "Would have been good for a $5 raise," Carmichael said. "After all the research I did to uncover the real dope. Listen, has the stuff gone to bed yet?" "I don't know. Maybe not." Croft was still checking the copy. "Okay," Carmichael said. "Next time." He jerked in his scarf, jumped off the stool, and headed for the door, trailed by the protesting Worth. 10 minutes later, he was in the office, listening to Croft's blind explanation. The copy had already been dispatched to the printer. "Does it matter? Was they... Incidentally, where were you today?" "Dancing on the rainbow," Carmichael snapped and departed. He switched over from rye to whiskey sours, and the cold night air naturally did not sober him. Swaying slightly, watching the sidewalk move a little as he blinked at it, he sat on the curb and pondered. "I'm sorry, Tim," Worth said. "It's too late now, though. There won't be any trouble. You've got a right to go by our office records." "Stop me now," Carmichael said, as a little. He was angry and drunk. On impulse, he got into a taxi and sped to the printers, still trailing a somewhat confused Jerry Worth. There was rhythmic thunder in the building. Swift movement of the taxi had given Carmichael a slight nausea. His head ached, and alcohol was in solution in his blood. The hot, inky air was unpleasant. The great liner types thumped and growled. Men were moving about. It was all slightly nightmarish, and Carmichael doggedly hunched his shoulders and lurched on until something jerked him back and began to strangle him. Worth started yelling. His face showed drunken terror. He made ineffectual gestures. But this was all part of the nightmare. Carmichael saw what had happened. The end of his scarf had got caught in the moving gear somewhere, and he was being dragged inexorably into meshing metal cogs. Men were running. The clanking, thumping, rolling sounds were deafening. He pulled at the scarf. Worth screamed, "Knife! Cut it!" The warping of relative values that intoxication gives saved Carmichael. Sober, he would have been helpless with panic. As it was, each thought was hard to capture, but clear and lucid when he finally got it. He remembered the shears, and he put his hand in his pocket. The blades slipped out of their cardboard sheaths, and he snipped through the scarf with fumbling, hasty movements. The white silk disappeared. Carmichael fingered the ragged edge of his throat and smiled stiffly. Mr. Peter Talley had been hoping that Carmichael would not come back. The probability lines had shown 2 possible variants. In one, all was well. In the other... Carmichael walked in the shop the next morning and held out a $5 bill. Talley took it. "Thank you. But you could have mailed me a check." "I could have. Only they wouldn't have told me what I wanted to know." "No," Talley said and sighed. "You decided, haven't you?" "Do you blame me?" Carmichael asked. "Last night? Do you know what happened?" "Yes." "How?" "Might as well tell you," Talley said. "You find it anyway. That's certain, anyhow." Carmichael sat down, lit a cigarette, and nodded. Logic. You couldn't raise that little accident by any manner of means. Bessie Hogue decided to break our date early yesterday morning, before I saw you. That was the beginning of the chain of incidents that led up to the accident. Ergo, you must have known that was going to happen. I did know. Prescience? Mechanical. I saw you will be crushed in the machine, which implies an alterable future. Certainly, Tally said, his shoulders slumping. There are innumerable possible variants in the future, different lines of probability, all depending on the outcome of various crises as they arise. Had to be skilled in certain branches of electronics. Some years ago, almost by accident, I stumbled upon the principle of seeing the future. How? Chiefly involves a personal focus on the individual. The moment you enter this place, he gestured, you're in the beam of my scanner. In my back room, I have the machine itself. By turning a calibrated dial, I check the possible futures. Sometimes there are many, sometimes only a few. As though at times certain stations weren't broadcasting. I look to my scanner and see what you need, and supply it. Carmichael let smoke drift from his nostrils. He watched the blue coils through narrowed eyes. You followed a man's whole life, in triplicate or quadruplet or whatever? No, Terry said. I got my device focused so it's sensitive to crisis curves. When those occur, I follow them further and see what probability paths involve a man's safe and happy survival. The sunglasses, the eggs, the gloves? Mr. Tally said, Mr. Smith is one of my regular clients. Whenever he passes the crisis successfully with any aid, he comes back for another checkup. Okay, his next crisis and supply him with what he needs to meet. I gave him the asbestos gloves. In about a month, the situation will arise where he must, under the circumstances, move a red-hot bar of metal. He's an artist. His hands. I see. So he doesn't know he's saving a man's life. Of course not, Tally said. Life isn't the only vital factor. And apparently minor crisis may lead to, well, a divorce, a neuroses, a wrong decision, and the loss of hundreds of lives indirectly. I ensure life, health, and happiness. You're an altruist. Only why doesn't the world storm your doors? Why limit your trade to a few? I haven't the time or the equipment. Most more machines could be built. Well, said Terry, most of my customers are wealthy. I must live. You could read tomorrow's stock market reports if you wanted dough, Carmichael said. We go back to that old question. If a guy has miraculous powers, why is he satisfied to run a hole-in-the-wall store? Economic reasons. I'm averse to gambling. I wouldn't be gambling, Carmichael pointed out. I often wondered what the vintners buy. Just what do you get out of this? Satisfaction, Terry said. Call it that. But Carmichael wasn't satisfied. His mind veered from the question and turned to the possibilities. Insurance, eh? Life, health, and happiness? What about me? Want there to be another crisis in my life sometime? Probably. Not necessarily one involving personal danger. Then I'm a permanent customer. I don't... Look, Carmichael said, I'm not trying to shake you down. I'll pay plenty. I'm not rich, but I know exactly what a service like this will be worth to me. No worries. It couldn't be... I'll come off it. I'm not a blackmailer or anything. I'm not threatening you with publicity, if that's what you're afraid of. I'm an ordinary guy, not a melodramatic villain. Do I look dangerous? What are you afraid of? You're an ordinary guy, yes, Tally admitted, only... Why not? Carmichael argued. They won't bother you. I passed one crisis successfully with your help. There'll be another one due sometime. Give me what I need for that. Charge me anything you like. I'll get the dough somehow. Borrow if necessary. I won't disturb you at all. All I ask is that you let me come in whenever I pass the crisis and get ammunition for the next one. What's wrong with that? Nothing, Tally said soberly. Well then, my ordinary guy. There's a girl. It's Bessie Hogue. I want to marry her. Settle down somewhere in the country, raise kids, and have security. There's nothing wrong with that either, is there? Tally said it was too late the moment we entered the shop today. Carmichael looked up. Why? He asked sharply. A buzzer rang in the back. Tally waited on the curtains and came back almost immediately with a wrapped parcel. He gave it to Carmichael. Carmichael smiled. Thanks, he said. Thanks a lot. Do you have any idea when the next crisis will come? In a week. Mind if I... Carmichael was unwrapping the package. He took out a pair of plastic-soled shoes and looked at Tally bewildered. Like that, eh? I'll need shoes? Yes. I suppose, Cormac hesitated. I guess you wouldn't tell me why? No, I won't do that. Be sure to wear them whenever you go out. Don't worry about that, and I'll mail you a check. I may take a few days to scrape up the dough, but I'll do it. How much? $500. I'll mail a check today. I prefer not to accept the fee until the client has been satisfied, Tally said. He had grown more reserved, his blue eyes cool and withdrawn. Suit yourself, Carmichael said. I'm going out to celebrate. You don't drink? I can't leave the shop. Well, goodbye. And thanks again. I won't be any trouble to you. You know, I promised that. He turned away. Looking after him, Tally smiled a wry, unhappy smile. He did not answer Carmichael's goodbye. Not then. When the door closed behind him, Tally turned to the back of his shop and went to the door where the scanner was. The lapse of 10 years can cover a multitude of changes. A man with the possibility of tremendous power almost within his grasp can alter in that time from a man who will not reach for it to a man who will, and moral values be damned. The change did not come quickly to Carmichael. Speak well for his integrity, it took 10 years to work such an alteration to all he had been taught. On the day he first went to Tally's shop, there was little evil in him, but his temptation grew stronger week by week, visit by visit. Tally, for reasons of his own, was content to sit idly by, waiting for customers, smothering the inconceivable potentiality of his machines under a blanket of trivial functions. But Carmichael was not content. It took him 10 years to reach the day, but the day came at last. Tally sat in a room, his back to the door. He was slumped low in an ancient rocker facing the machine. It changed little in the space of a decade. Still covered most of two walls, and the eyepiece of its scanner glittered under amber fluorescence. Carmichael looked covetously at the eyepiece. It was window and doorway to a power beyond any man's dreams. Wealth beyond imagining lay just within that tiny opening. The rights of the life and death of every man alive. Nothing between that fabulous future and himself except the man who sat looking at the machine. Tally did not seem to hear the careful footsteps of the creak of the door behind him. He did not stir as Carmichael lifted the gun slowly. One might think he never guessed what was coming, or why, or from whom, as Carmichael shot him through the head. Tally sighed and shivered a little and twisted the scanner dial. It was not the first time the eyepiece had showed him his own lifeless body, glimpsed down some vista of probability, but he never saw the slumping of that familiar figure without feeling a breath of indescribable coolness pull backwards upon him out of the future. He straightened from the eyepiece and sat back in his chair, looking thoughtfully at a pair of rough-soled shoes lying beside him on the table. He sat quietly for a while, his eyes upon the shoes, his mind following Carmichael down the street into the evening on the morrow, and towards that coming crisis which would depend on a secure footing on a subway platform as a train thundered by the place where Carmichael will be standing one day next week. Tally had sent his messenger boy out this time for 2 pairs of shoes. He had hesitated long, an hour ago, between the rough-soled pair and the smooth. For Tally was a human man, and there were many times when his job was distasteful to him. But the end this time would have been the smooth-soled pair he had wrapped for Carmichael. Now he sighed and bent to the scanner again, twisting it down to bring it to view a scene he had glimpsed before. Carmichael, standing on a crowded subway platform, glittering with oily wetness for some overflow. Carmichael in the slick-soled shoes Tally chosen for him. A commotion in the crowd, a surge towards the platform edge. Carmichael's feet slipping frantically as the train roared by. Goodbye, Mr. Carmichael, Tally murmured. It was a farewell he had not spoken when Carmichael left the shop. He spoke it regretfully, and the regret was for the Carmichael today who did not yet deserve that end. He was not now a melodramatic villain whose death one could watch unmoved, but the Tim Carmichael of today had an atonement to make for the Carmichael of 10 years ahead, and the payment must be extracted. It's not a good thing to have the power of life and death over one's fellow humans. Peter Tally knew it was not a good thing, but the power had been put into his hands. He had not sought it. Seeing a hand machine had gone almost by accident to its tremendous completion under his trained fingers and trained mind. At first it puzzled him. How was such a device to be used? What dangers, what terrible potentialities lay in that eye that could see through the veil of tomorrow? His was a responsibility, and it weighed heavily upon him until the answer came. After that, he knew the answer well. The weight was heavier still. For Tally was a mild man. He couldn't have told anyone the real reason why he was a shopkeeper. Satisfaction, he had said to Carmichael. Sometimes, indeed, there was deep satisfaction. But at other times, at times like this, there was only dismay and humility. Especially humility. We have what you need. Only Tally knew that message was not for the individuals that came to his shop. The pronoun was plural, not singular. It was a message for the world whose future was being carefully, lovingly reshaped under Peter Tally's guidance. The main line of the future was not easy to alter. The future was a pyramid shaping slowly, brick by brick, and brick by brick, Tally had to change it. There were some men who were necessary, men who could create and build, men who should be saved. Tally gave them what they needed. But inevitably there were others whose ends were evil. Tally gave them to what the world needed. Death. Peter Tally had not asked for this terrible power, but the key had been put in his hands, and he dare not delegate such authority as his to any other man alive. Sometimes he made mistakes. He felt a little sure since the simile of the key had occurred to him, the key to the future, a key that had been laid in his hands. Remembering that, he leaned back in his chair and reached for an old and a well-worn book. It fell open easily at a familiar passage. Peter Tally's lips moved as he read the passage once again, in his room behind the shop on Park Avenue. And I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, and I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven. The end.